What is going on, everybody? It's Tyler and Matt, the FF Mediators. Today, we're going to do some buy, sell, hold talk about the fantasy playoffs, kind of what's happening with our teams, answer your questions. So, if you're in here, be sure to put your questions, your thoughts in the comments, and we will go through all of those for as long as we can. But really excited to talk some football today. How we doing, Tyler?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Had some stressful football weeks. Last week, trying to make the playoffs. I think I made it in every one of my leagues except for the one I wasn't trying to make it in. So we're at least in the playoffs. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, we like that. I always say that the tanking or rebuilding teams are my most favorite ones to do. I'm with you. I made the playoffs in ones I wanted to, the ones I didn't want to. Um, Successfully avoided the playoffs and got a couple number one picks, couple second picks overall, but we'll see what happens. Really excited. Jacob says, "Where is Pete?" Pete is not going to be on tonight. On Wednesdays at this time, it's just us with the FF Mediators. Occasionally, Pete pops in, so he might come in. You never know with that guy, but he is certainly one of the best. I mean, that man has been calling my defense for my redraft leagues every single week. I just watch his video and then I plug and play whoever's there. Same with Hoff and his kickers. So, those guys have been on absolute fire with those picks. So, certainly go give them the love that they deserve on all of their videos. But we appreciate you being in here, Jacob. Um, but Tyler, my question for you is as we approach the fantasy playoffs, what player do you have the most riding on right now?
Oh man, that's tough. Probably right now the player that I have the most, um, probably the most shares of that I'm in a playoff with. It's either between Devon Achan or Puka. It's gonna be those are the two. I'm a little more comfortable with Puka, and I'm kind of comfortable with AJ Achan too. But um, it's that Miami offense, man. It comes and goes at times. I feel like so it kind of scares me a little bit.
It certainly does come and go at times. Achane he's done a really good job of finding ways to work in the passing game. It's been a little bit different with this Miami offense, but overall, I mean, he's catching the ball a bunch. You mentioned Puka. Puka does not need really much else added to how he's playing this year. I mean, outside of him getting ejected a couple weeks ago, other than that, he's been phenomenal. Um, he's a heck of a player, just does it all, and he proves that he's just tougher than everyone. Every single week he
Mm.
goes out there, lays it all on the line, and he's putting up for your fantasy teams. I mean, last week he had 41 points, I think, in most of my leagues, so you can't really top that. The guy for me that I have the most riding on would probably be Justin Jefferson. I have Jefferson in a bunch of leagues, including leagues where I've made the playoffs. So I need JJ to really come through and put up some points. Obviously, he had the big game last week with 28 points. So if we could repeat that, that would be wonderful. Would really help me advance or just kind of keep rolling into the bye week for those teams that I do have that. But I'm really excited for the fantasy playoffs. I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, yeah, I am too for sure. If we're gonna look at it from a little bit of a different lens, I know we love. I think we made a post earlier, or we at least talked about how the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And
Mm.
I'm just gonna tell you right now, the one that I do have a lot of my playoff hopes riding on that is not on my team is AJ Brown. So that's been one heck of a squeaky wheel. We're gonna see if he gets greased this week or not, and hopefully, if so, it's not too well oiled. Hopefully, he still got a few squeaks in there.
Yeah, I know we were talking earlier, and Tyler he takes on AJ Brown in several leagues for the playoffs this week. So tough situation for him, but I think the squeaky wheel gets the grease, as I like to say, because AJ Brown has been disappointing the last 2 weeks. I mean, week 13 against the Ravens, he had 9 points. Last week, he had just 6 points against the Panthers. Taking on the Steelers this week, so okay matchup there. Steelers decent on defense, but as far as it goes for AJ Brown, he's good enough where it doesn't really matter who he's playing. Uh, Hurts just has to find a way to get him the ball, and if he can do that, good things happen. And I think that this team is in a position where they're ready to try and get loaded, get running for the playoffs, especially with After this week, they have 3 straight divisional games. So a lot rides on winning these games here at the end for the Eagles. So I expect A.J. Brown to have heavy volume, heavy manufactured targets, manufactured touches, whatever it's going to be to get him involved early and often. So I'm afraid to play any Eagle stacks that have Hurts and A.J. Brown. So if you're taking that down, that's a tough week to draw that, but we'll just have to see what happens. But Jacob says, love the brand. Keep it up, boys. Hey, we love it too. So be sure to smash the like button. Show us the love that way. We appreciate everyone who's in here. Albert says, hello, everyone. Says, do you guys trust Jordan Addison in the fantasy playoffs? Man, that's a tough situation to be in. We were just talking about JJ and, how much I have on him in the playoffs. Addison, man, last week, 35 points. He was an absolute stud. 12 targets with 8 catches, 133 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Do I think that he does that again this week? No, I do not. Divisional game against the Bears. Do I trust him in my lineup? I think I'm going to have to. I mean, he's wide receiver 16 on the year, so he's doing okay for where you drafted him. I think he's a good player, and he's kind of coming on here at the end, really when it matters too. I mean, he had 26 points against the Bears just 3 weeks ago. So could he have a good fantasy day? Absolutely, he could.
Yeah, absolutely. And that last week against the Bears, he was the wide receiver 1 on the week. Definitely possible for him to to get going here and stay hot. His connection with Sam Darnold, especially last week, and 2 out of the last 3 weeks that we've looked at, you can't deny that at that point. But that being said, usually if we see one team get burnt by a guy in one game, like in their series, or whatever, earlier in the year, that second game they usually try to pay a little bit more attention. Now, you do also have the best wide receiver in the game across from him who, takes a lot of that attention anyway. So it should be interesting. I think he's definitely a wide receiver to play for you at least. We'll see. I mean, if it's somebody you need to start, absolutely throw him in. I don't think there's the concern level that we started the year off with. Um, but if you have the top guys, I wouldn't necessarily throw him in over them.
Yeah, Albert. I mean, it's just going to depend on who you can pick from. So if you're still in here, let us know who you're deciding to pick between. We'll certainly help you out in that regard. But Addison probably got you to the playoffs at some point this season. He's played well multiple times. So do I trust him? I think I'm going to have to. I mean, the Vikings are a good football team, also trying to make the playoffs, and it's a divisional game. They're at home, so I'm comfortable with starting Jordan Addison. Like Tyler said, a wide receiver 2. That's just fine with me. Pete over on X says, "Good evening, fellas. Hey, Pete, how's it going, my friend? The fantasy or the sports affiliation, I believe that's who he's with. Good group. Go check them out on X. Recommend their follow." Tommy says, "Sit one." I know it says start one, but his next message says sit one. Tyreek, Evans, Ladd, Scary Terry. Who are you sitting in this group here, Tyler?
Ooh, is Ladd healthy this week?
I was
Do we
looking
know
that
that?
up as we talk. He had a limited practice today, so I'd expect him to play. I mean, they're playing at Kansas City, so I mean, take that for what it's worth. Not a terrible matchup against Kansas City. Probably going to have to score some points. If I had to sit someone, I
They just
think,
played Kansas City, right?
yeah, I
Yeah,
I think
they're
I
playing
lean.
Tampa Bay this week.
Excuse me, I meant Tampa Bay. I was looking at last week. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
I lean Evans in this situation. That's who I think I'm going to sit. Um, but I think all 4 of these guys could perform. You're just going to have to monitor Ladd's health.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if Ladd's unhealthy, obviously it's Ladd. That goes without saying. Um, I do think Evans might be the play there. Tyreek has looked okay, and I do think they're going to have to score a lot of points this week if they're going to try to win this football game, and they need it. They have to win. They have to win out and get some help to try to make it to the playoffs. So,
And real quick,
and
Tyler,
and
I want to point
yeah,
out you mentioned that it's a must win for them. The last 4 games for Tua have been
hmm
absolutely phenomenal, and no one is talking about it.
oh yeah,
No one
yeah.
at
They've
all.
been
I mean, He's got him
So
rolling.
I, I know it's insane. So he does. So since he's came back, his lowest points have been 23.5. That's 4 straight weeks of over 23.5 points in one of the leagues I have him in.
Mhm.
I actually contemplated this decision earlier. I'll get your opinion on it real quick because it kind of ties in with my Tyreek prediction here. Um, I have a league where I have both Tua and I have Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is projected more points. He plays the Rams. I could see that game being one of two things. I could see it being a shootout, or I could see it being a defensive battle, and because it's a division game or whatever. Um, and then I have Tua who plays Houston. So if you had those two, who would start? Because I have Tua in my
Mm,
lineup, and I'm riding the hot hand at this
yeah.
point.
I think I'm going to roll with Tua. I mean, the quarterback matchup, the Rams are the eighth easiest matchup. The Texans are the 10th easiest matchup. So we're kind of splitting hairs. Um, the 49ers have struggled. Is Garindo hurt? Where are they going to go next with the running game? I don't know. But here's what I do know Tua's playing really good football right now. Really good football. And I know you mentioned over 23.5 points per game. No interceptions. Here's his touchdown totals in the last 4 weeks: 3, 4, 2, 2. So, I mean, he's putting up points for your team. So I'm going to ride with a hot hand there in Tua. Um, I just think there's a lot there. Tyler, he does add one quick question here at the end. Aubrey for
Yeah.
Fairbairn. Would you rather start Aubrey this week, or would you rather start Fairbairn?
Oh, that is interesting. I do think um I would probably keep Aubrey. The only reason I say that is Fairbairn, he's okay, but the Houston Texans offense hasn't looked as great, I don't feel like. Not saying they can't score points, obviously, but I do look for the Cowboys to score on the Panthers this week. He'll at least get points from that, from his extra points. And, the Panthers are playing well. Maybe they hold him to a few field goals and he's got to kick a long one or two. So he'll get you some points. Think maybe just a little bit safer floor there.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Aubrey in that situation too. Let's jump on to our next question from Matt. He says, "Help set my lineup. He needs two wide receivers, two running backs, one flex. It's full PPR. Let's start with the wide receivers here, Tyler. We've got London, Puka, Garrett Wilson, Jawan Jennings, Lamb, and that is all for the wide receivers. So pick your two there. For me, I'm gonna go Puka and." I'm really torn between London and Garrett Wilson. It's weird to sit here and think about moving Lamb to the flex, but that's what I'm about to do. I
Hmm.
think I'm going to go with Wilson just based on his insane volume the last little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely tough for sure. Puka's in regardless. I think you play
Mhm.
Puka. At, I think that's an easy wide receiver start for you. Especially make sure you put him in the wide receiver position slot because he is a Thursday night game. You want that flexibility in your flex spot. Pro tip.
Good shout.
Um, the Falcons do play the Raiders. So, oh man, this is so tough. I see why you
Kirk's
asked the
been awful.
question now. Yeah,
Yeah,
it, it
Kirk's been
it's
awful.
been it's been terrible, man. I think I'm gonna go Puka, CD, and Garrett Wilson, and that would
Okay.
be. I think that would be just. I'm playing CD's target game. He's the number one in his offense, regardless. I'm just gonna take that. Um, Now I'm curious what you have to say here about the running backs because I know we've got some agreements and disagreements here, so this should be interesting.
Yeah. My love for Bucky Irving is, some would say, undying. It's relentless. So I feel like I have to throw him in there. I'm also going to throw B Rob in there. B Rob has been really, really important to the Washington offense. When he plays well, they win ball games. I know this as a Washington fan. I watch every single game, every single snap, and sometimes it's painful. It's been painful most of my life. But here's what I know. I know they like to run the ball, and B Rob is someone that they're going to lean on. So I'm starting B Rob. Um, Bucky, over Travis Etienne, absolutely for me. I mean, we're gonna have to monitor Bucky's health. I think he still practiced today, but I'll double check that really quick. Um, no, he was out today, so just be careful with that. Um, is Brees Hall playing? Um, that's going to be tough. He didn't practice on Wednesday. Tyler, I know you're the Braylon Allen believer. You were very high on him pre-draft, and you stuck with it despite the landing spot. Is he comfortable enough to be your RB2 in this situation, or what running backs are you going with? Because I think I'm going with Bucky and B Rob.
Yeah, so I mean, if this was any other backfield, right? If you had some other questionable names and Braylon Allen was your RB2, I'd throw him in with confidence. I've seen enough from him earlier in the year. I think he's played well even when he's got in. Maybe he hasn't produced as much as people would like. I think he's a good player. That being
Mhm.
said, I think B Rob has to be in the lineup regardless. I do agree if Bucky is healthy, like fully healthy. This is not like limited practice, limited practice. He gets one full practice in and then you put him in. I think I would go with Bucky if he's fully healthy. Now, if he has a trend of, not practicing or limited practices all week and he's kind of like a game time decision, I'm probably throwing Chase Brown in there. That's just me. I know me and
Oh,
you, we kind of disagree there on our thought process, but he's getting ready to play the Chargers. The Chargers are a tough defense. We already know that. I would take the floor of Chase Brown. I'm pretty sure the head coach was talking about Chase Brown today earning, his role in that offense. So I'll take those two if Bucky is not fully healthy. If Bucky is fully healthy, I'm taking Bucky and B Rob all day.
yeah. I honestly I didn't even read Chase Brown there, to be honest. I just read B Rob, Bucky, Travis Etienne, and Braylon Allen. Chase Brown is someone I've been very critical over. And I still am. I think his receiving work and fantasy work, I won't deny it. I've said that every single time. But his rushing efficiency and rushing capability is what I have questioned. Taking on Tennessee, it's an okay matchup. So it's ho hum. Tennessee's not great against the running back. They're not bad either. So I could certainly see Chase Brown putting up points because here's what I know: he's going to get the volume. He's going to get it. He has every single
Yep.
week. I don't think that happens next year. That's what I've been saying. That if I'm in a dynasty league, especially if I didn't make the playoffs, I would be looking to move Chase Brown. But more of that down the road. But for this question, I think I'm going to still stick with B Rob and Bucky. If for some reason Bucky's hurt, then I would go Chase Brown. And as I said before, my flex would be Lamb, like you said.
Yep.
So let's jump to Paul's question, Tyler. He says, "Hey guys, who to start? Has Garindo if he plays, Pollard, or White if Bucky doesn't play?" Lots of different scenarios. No doubt you're stuck with a lot of scenarios and ones that I hate to be monitoring. When you're going back and forth of trying to figure out who's going to play, who's not going to play, that's always difficult. But Tyler, is there a name in this group that you like the most?
I believe probably your best bet is going to be probably Tony Pollard, just because he's the healthy one out of the group. That's, or what I mean. He's not vying for a role depending on health at that point. Um, Garindo, if he plays, he could always go out, you know, in the first quarter and then he doesn't play anymore. And they throw Patrick Taylor in there and he scores 3 touchdowns on the day and there it goes. Seems like doesn't matter which 49ers running back is in there, it just kind of works. So um, I kind of lean towards not starting Garindo, really. Um, I will say that if Bucky does miss, Rashad White becomes very interesting. That goes back to the workload conversation that we had all of last year. We talked about this, um, but it was we never really believed in the efficiency of Rashad White. That was never really his game. It was the volume. And so if he's going to get all the volume, I think he would be a great play. But that being said, that rides on Bucky's health. And if Bucky is a game time decision and they're like, "Oh, we're going to see how he feels. We're going to test it out in the game," I would play Pollard and not even try it because if Bucky gets in and he's healthy and he stays in the game, it's Bucky's backfield. we already agree on that. We know that's coming. So
Yeah, I'm with you there too, Tyler. I mean, if Bucky does miss, then Rashad White becomes really, really valuable. So I certainly would start Rashad White in that situation. But otherwise, I'd probably lean Pollard. He did have 102 yards last week and a couple catches. I don't think he scored, but he had an okay day. He didn't hurt you. I think Pollard's he's playing fine. He's an RB2. You're not really looking to get a bunch out of him. I assume this is probably your RB2 anyways, based on the names we're kind of talking about. But yeah, I mean, Bucky is the key in this situation. Garindo, I'm not really interested in trying to deal with that situation because we know, like you said, the 49ers, they're good at running the ball no matter what happens. Kyle Shanahan is that good. I don't know if Trent Williams is playing this week or not. I know that's kind of a little bit more of an impact in the passing game, but I still think Trent Williams is a really good player. So hopefully that answers your question, Paul, and hopefully you can get the win. But let's jump to Steven's question. Tyler says, "Are you starting Jawan Jennings over AJ Brown in full PPR?" Steven, I'll be the first to say I am absolutely not doing that. Jawan Jennings has been a really fun story. I love the guy. My favorite thing about him is he will do absolutely anything to block anyone. Like, I love receivers when they play like that. Cooper Kupp's that way. Puka Nakua is that way. And Jawan Jennings is that way. He's an absolute dog, just running out there looking to hit somebody. So I respect him for that. However, A.J. Brown is the squeaky wheel that we keep talking about, and he's going to get the grease, which means I'm expecting like 10 targets, maybe more, and pretty heavy involvement. So I'm rolling with A.J. Brown.
yeah, I agree there. I mean, Jawan has been a great weapon for Brock Purdy. And like I said
Mhm.
earlier, this game goes one of two ways. It's either going to be a shootout or it's going to be defensive slugfest. It's going to be real low scoring, maybe like a I don't know, man, like 17-14, something like 17-7 game. I could see
I
that
could
being the
see it.
case easy, especially if the 49ers offense struggles. Um, so I'll take AJ Brown, like we said, squeaky wheel. I'll take that all day, every day. Um, and especially in a full PPR, like, yeah, Jawan Jennings may get the targets, but guess what? What if it's a Kittle week? If George Kittle gets 15 targets and he scores 2 touchdowns, you're going to be really disappointed when you play Jawan Jennings, and AJ Brown has 6 targets and he's got 3 catches for 90 yards on a touchdown. Like, it's just going to happen. So
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump to Matt's next question. He says, Anthony Richardson or Jameis Winston? Um, man, Winston takes on Kansas City, right? And then we've got Richardson who takes on Denver. So
mhm.
probably, man, that's a tough matchup in Denver. Denver's pretty good against quarterbacks. 26th overall, 26. So I'm not thrilled in starting him. Kansas City 12th against quarterbacks. So um, man, are you rolling with Jameis over Richardson in this situation, Tyler?
Yep. Even as a Colts fan, I am terrified of the Broncos defense. Now, that completely backfired on my prediction of Jameis struggling against the Broncos defense earlier. I think that was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, that completely backfired because Jameis had like 5 touchdowns and also threw 2 pick sixes. So I think that will be the prescription for this game, especially against Kansas City. He's going to have to score. They have a good defense, and they'll be behind at some point, I'm sure. I As much as I would love the Colts to pull this one out against Denver, and maybe they do. Sorry, Pete. Um, you know, I don't want to trust Anthony Richardson in a first round playoff week where if I have Jameis and Jameis has been on a hot streak, I've got that to play. Give me Jameis. He's going to at least chuck the ball 50 times. We know that. There's going to be a Hail Mary down there somewhere that Cedric Tillman ends up with. So,
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I mean, Winston has played really, really well. But we did just get a super chat from Stephen Drake. So let's jump to that one, Tyler. We appreciate you, Stephen. Thanks for giving us that super chat. We will get back to the questions that are in line as soon as we finish this one. But let's start here, Tyler. He asks, is Patrick Taylor worth picking up? So I'll let you start off. What are your thoughts on Taylor? I don't know. I don't remember seeing if you made any claims for him in any leagues that we're in. I think I picked him up in one spot.
So I think he's worth picking up, especially if you have Garendo. I think for sure. My guess is because I was about to say it's going to depend on the names you have, but if you had to pick up Garendo and we're playing Garendo already and he got hurt, my guess is you either one you had CMC and he's hurt you all year, or the rest of your running back room is decimated. So I would easily pick up Patrick Taylor. Now, don't go dropping, some bigger name, some wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, or something like that to go get Patrick Taylor just for this reason. But that being said, if you have the spot, you have somebody to drop, I would definitely go pick him up, especially if you have Garendo. And, that's what I would do. If Garendo sits, play him. Like we just said earlier, the 49ers running back, whoever's there, it just works for some reason.
Yeah, they find a way to get it done. For me, I think he's worth picking up, especially if you have the spot. I mean, I don't know who we're dropping. Like you said, don't drop any big name. But if you needed Garendo and you were going to start him, then yeah, you're probably going to have to start Patrick Taylor. It's a little bit scary, but we see this year in and year out where these running backs, usually running backs, come in and at the last minute, they get a start or they start for a couple weeks and they win people fantasy championships. That's not uncommon. That happens all the time. So I'm fine with doing it if that's the situation I'm in. Like I said, it's just going to depend on who I'm having to pick between. Um, but yeah, I mean, you're trying to win, so I can't blame you if you have to do it. He also adds, Tyler, if Njoku sits, would you play Ferguson? Ferguson has not been great. I mean, it's 3 straight games of under 5 points, 2 games where he didn't play. Uh, Outside of that, his last double-digit game was Week 9 against the Falcons. So it's not been great. I have to imagine there's probably a better streaming option out there. I mean, he does have a matchup against the Panthers. So, who wants to win that game more, the Carolina Panthers or the Dallas Cowboys? I don't know, but we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, they are the worst team against tight ends, the Panthers are. So there is that little nugget to, take into account, but I still feel like there has to be a better name.
Yeah, I mean, like Matt said, if you've got a better name on waivers, that's is going to get the targets. By all means, play them. I wouldn't count on Ferguson, even though it is the worst matchup. Um, you know, that being said, I think you're just hoping that Njoku plays at this point. Um, you know, he's going to get the targets. He's athletic. He can score touchdowns. Jameis seems to like to throw to him as well. Jameis really likes to throw to anybody on the field, apparently. So I mean, I think you hope Njoku plays. If not, and you've got a better waiver wire option, try that. If you have to play Ferguson, it's not the end of the world, but just don't expect a moonshot from that.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not putting a lot of
I
faith
did
faith in him.
no, I did have one question because I was trying to think of the name. So, a few years back, there was a Washington running back who all the running backs kept getting hurt, and right at the end of the year, like when the playoffs started, he was off of waivers, and I
Oh
couldn't
yeah,
remember his name. Was that Jarrett Patterson? Was that him?
Jarrett Patterson. Yeah, it was Jarrett Patterson.
Yeah, it was a few years ago. I couldn't remember. It came to me as I was looking back, and I was trying to think. But Patrick Taylor could be Jarrett Patterson this year, man. Like, all the running backs keep getting hurt in front of him, and you pick him up and you ride him to a championship because he starts and the scheme is good. So,
Or was it
um,
Patterson or was it Rodriguez? I can't remember who it was. But you
I
are
think it was
right.
Patterson.
There was a running back from Washington who, won some people some fantasy championships. Yeah, Chris Rodriguez against the Jets in Week 16 of 2023 scored 19 fantasy points. So that's a big time week back then. So, like I said, you never know when these guys could step in and really make an impact on your fantasy teams. But we appreciate the super chat, Steven. Thanks for that. We will jump back in line here to where we were. Let me find our spot here. Sold Shiesty says, Start Tony Pollard this week versus the Bengals. Yeah, I'm fine with starting Pollard. I mean, I mentioned that earlier. He played well last week. Um, I've got him in a league where I need him. I need him to be an RB2, so hopefully he can. Um, and he also adds Tyler needs Addison to go off. We talked about Addison at the very start of this show. Is he someone that you can trust in the fantasy playoffs? I think so. And Tyler even said he thought so too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's a wide receiver too the rest of the season. Him and Sam Darnold, their chemistry is there, obviously. So I think, now going off may not happen, but he could at least keep you in the game and hope one of your other guys goes off too.
Yeah, Nelson says start two, Tyler. Kamara, Chase Brown, Rico Dowdle, and James Conner. Who are the two that you're picking in?
Ooh, in full PPR, I'm probably gonna go James Conner and probably go. Playing against could be I'd target that defense. Although they have been playing better, that was one of my early defenses to target. So I
Who
think
did you say
that's the
you
two I would
cut
go
out for the last one? You said James Conner and who?
with. Rico.
Rico? Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I'm going to go James Conner and Kamara here. Here's what I know about the Saints. The offense is probably going to be bad, especially given, the Derek Carr news. Taysom Hill's already out for the year. Chris Olave's out. Like, this offense is bad. So what does that mean? Someone has to do something. And I expect Kamara to just get an absolute load of opportunities from the Saints. So I'm probably going to roll with Kamara. He's still got enough juice to really make something happen on just one play. I know it's a little bit scary. Only had 10 points last week, but I'm rolling with Kamara.
And I don't think that's a wrong play either. I mean, I think
Yeah.
you've got 3 running backs there you can go with. I'm just a little more skittish on the Saints offense. So that's my
Yeah.
only reason for going Rico.
And I wouldn't fault you too if you even wanted to say Chase Brown. I would definitely start Chase Brown over Rico. But I understand your play on Rico. It's just with the Panthers, you never know. They're playing a lot better right now, so they deserve some credit. Nelson adds, Tyler, that Lamar, Chase, Puka, Hawkinson, and Nico, just not sure which running backs to start. So this team is pretty good. Lots of opportunity there. So, yeah, I think you're going to be fine if you can roll with Kamara, Connor, or Rico. I mean, really, with Chase and Puka, those are two guys that could score 100 points. Like, if you told me next week, like, can you believe those two scored 100 combined points? I'd say, yeah, probably. Like, it's possible.
Mhm. Yeah,
All right,
absolutely.
let's hit our next one here. So start one, one wide receiver, one flex. We've got Neighbors, JSN, Metcalf, Bucky, and Waddle. Man, this is not a fun group to pick from. Is JSN to that point where we have to automatically start him?
Yes.
I
Yes, he
feel
is.
like he's there. I mean, he's played really wide receiver 6 on the season, so I can't fault anyone that's picking him. Neighbors is one that's interesting to me, just with the volume. I don't really love the Waddle play. I can tell you that much. I'm not the highest on Waddle. I know he had 12 targets this past week. Tyler, who are your two that you're picking here?
I think if Bucky plays, I think you probably go Bucky and JSN. If not, I'm going Neighbors and JSN. I think that's probably your best bet.
Yeah, I think I'm going with JSN and Neighbors, to be honest. You know, Neighbors' target volume is insane, guys. I mean, 10 targets last week, 13 the week before, 9, 10, 11, 13, 8, 15, 12, 18, 7. Like, it's not pretty. I know that much, but I know he's going to be involved. He's taking on Baltimore. They're more likely than not going to be down, and Baltimore gives up the second most points to wide receivers. So I know all they need to do is hyperfixate on Neighbors. And so I'm just going to hope that they do that because right now I'm chasing the guaranteed volume. So I love plays like Neighbors and Garrett Wilson right now because I want the boom of trying to get, 25, 30 points, but I also want the stability of not getting goosed in the playoffs. Because make no mistake,
Yeah.
sometimes our playoff wins are ugly, and all we need is just a few points. And right now, I really want those types of guys that I know are going to at least have a safe floor. But let's jump to our next one here. Tyler says bench one, Braylon Allen, Shakir, or Pollard. I think here I'm going to bench Braylon Allen. Just at this time, we don't know anything about Hall. So, if he becomes the starter, then I would probably think about benching Shakir, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'm as much as I like Braylon Allen, I would bench Braylon Allen out of these. Um,
Yeah.
Shakir still had a decent target volume, and we've already talked about Pollard enough. You play him.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's jump to his next part. He says, should I drop Pittman for Sam Darnold or Anthony Richardson? He has lots of depth at wide receiver. My league plays championship on week 18. Yeah, that's tough. Just want to make sure I have depth in case Lamar sits. That's a tough spot. I get what you're saying there. I mean, if these big time quarterbacks can make it to week 18 and not have to play, that's a big situation. And I think Sam Darnold is someone who probably more likely than not will have to play week 18. So I can't blame you at all for looking to solve that. You mentioned you have lots of wide receiver depth. Not sure what those names are, but as long as you're comfortable with it, um, yeah, I'm assuming it's the Chase, Puka, and Nico team up here since you have Lamar. So, yeah, I think I'm okay with dropping Pittman and securing quarterbacks. And worst case, you can play matchups going forward if something were to happen with Lamar, which God forbid, I hope it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. If you, my only concern, I know we're saying like Sam Darnold probably will have to play. Um, I would be a little more. I would say if either of the two have to play, I would say it'd be Anthony Richardson would have to play. They're fighting. They're more in the hunt than Sam Darnold and them are. Like Sam Darnold and them pretty much have. I don't want to say locked the spot, but unless they self implode, they're going to be in the playoffs. Now they're still fighting with Detroit. For the division lead there, but if you had to pick up one and you're dropping Pittman anyway, I mean, you could take a shot on Anthony Richardson and hope his growth continues, and by week 18, maybe you have a Lamar light, I guess.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, saying this after Sam Darnold just scored 35 points, but Anthony Richardson has the higher ceiling. I know that's
Yeah.
tough to say, but Richardson's the one that could run for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sam Darnold's 35-point game has to come from what he just did. 5 passing touchdowns, like a ton of work through the air, 350 yards almost. And that's tough for a quarterback to do. Not saying Sam Darnold can't do it because he also has the benefit of throwing to really, really great pass catchers in Hawkinson, Addison, and of course the best player on the planet, Justin Jefferson. So I think you're making a right move here by trying to manage yourself and try and get towards the fantasy championship. So do what you need to do. I'm fine with dropping Pittman for either one of those. My preference between the two would be probably Sam Darnold, but I can't fault you if you want to chase the fantasy upside of Anthony Richardson. Let's jump to We Buy Homes Near You 512 in the non PPR. If Hall doesn't go, Tyler, do I flex Shakir, Garindo, Braylon Allen, Rashad White, or Jacoby Myers? He adds that he needs some upside since he's playing against Derrick Henry. I get that. That's certainly um, a big factor there. We've said it several times. If Bucky doesn't play, then Rashad White would probably be my start in this situation. If you need upside, I would say that Shakir is not the answer. While he did have the 18-point game this past week, he's kind of still limited in what he does. A lot of his work is around the sticks to the sidelines. getting first downs, things like that. So I'm probably not going to roll with Shakir in this situation. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I tend to have the same thoughts there. I wouldn't really trust Shakir at this point, as far as an upside shot goes. Garindo, health concerns still, even if he does play, he could always re-injure himself and go out. If you truly are needing that upside, like we said, if Bucky is out, definitely play Rashad White. That would be the biggest thing there. If not, I mean, I think you play Jacoby. I mean, they are playing the Falcons. The Falcons have not looked good. I mean, look, they just allowed the Vikings to score 42 points. So I mean, if somebody's going to get points on that team receiving, it's him or Brock Bowers. So I would take the shot either with Rashad White if Bucky's out or Jacoby most likely.
Does losing Aiden O'Connell scare you at all with Jacoby?
Um, I mean, ma- the thing is I think we all agree that quarterback room is not great, regardless. And if Jacoby was
No.
already producing with a quarterback room that wasn't great, you know what I mean? Like at that point, doesn't
Yeah,
matter as long
I
as
get
it's
you.
somebody who can just get the ball to him.
Um, I'm excited for this next question because Pete's in here. So I'm going to give Pete the shout out. He says, defense, the Denver Broncos or the Cardinals? Fortunately for me, I have been plugged in with the one and only Pete Terranova. I watch his video every single week, and I am able to get my defensive streamer all the information I need from his wonderful video that he puts out every single week. So go watch those. It gives everything you need to know about what defenses to pick. He has a ranking video too if you want to go through all of them. So the guy is the man with defense. And if you watch this video, I'm going to do a tad bit of a spoiler. So sorry, Pete. I'm rolling with the Cardinals here. I know they were a little bit disappointing last week, but we're going to get a bounce back this week. I'm feeling good. Trust the process.
Okay, okay. That I'm not gonna lie, that was a shock. I hadn't got to watch it this week, so I was not expecting that. Um, Gut reaction tells me that you should probably play the Broncos. Um, I wish that wasn't the case going against the Colts. Um, you know, but if you're wary of the Jameis performance from a few weeks ago, and you really don't want to have to deal with it, play the Cardinals. The Cardinals defense has been playing well. I don't really necessarily think you go wrong with either. Um, I think it's very likely that Anthony Richardson throws a pick six to Mr. Pat Sertan at some point in this game. And then the Cardinals are going against the Patriots. So, you're looking for some upside there. If you want your defense to score a lot of points, probably go the Broncos. If you want to be more steady Eddie and keep you, around that 10, threshold that you start with, I'd probably go the Cardinals.
Yeah, I can't blame you there. Well, let's jump to Tron Force's question here. He says, from 2-5 to 9-5 with a playoff bye. Love that, man. Never give up. You got to keep rolling. He says, I currently have the Broncos defense. I also picked up the Colts defense due to their matchups in week 16 and week 17. Would you use the Colts or stick with the Broncos? Well, I mean, I'm going to insert all my Pete Terranova hype here and once again say check all his stuff out on defensive questions. For me, though, um, Tyler, are you interested in rolling with the Colts or the Broncos this week? I think next week and looking ahead for the Colts defense, that's fine. Like I like that you're being proactive and you're trying to figure out what's going to happen when you move on. I mean, 9-5 with a playoff bye, that's awesome to hear. That's what we want to know about these teams. Trying to get that bye week. They have Tennessee, the Giants, and Jacksonville to close out the season for the Colts. The Broncos, let me look up the end of their schedule
They
because I
play the
don't know that one.
Chargers next week, and
Then the Bengals. So,
sorry, the
I mean,
Bengals. Yeah. So
a lot rides on this Colts Broncos game too. So if the Bengals want to
mhm.
make the playoffs, they really need Denver to win this game and then lose 3 of their next 4. or 3 of their next 3. Sorry.
Mhm.
So if the Colts win this game, then they can really help their playoff rankings. Um, so it's a interesting situation because so many of these AFC teams are all dependent on each other. But
Mhm.
I'd be interested to hear what you have on this defense take here, Tyler.
Um, so I think if you're playing this week, I think you stick with the Broncos. Bo Nix has looked electrifying, especially second half of the year. I don't think the Colts defense is that great. Um, as and that pains me to say as a Colts fan. But that being said, I think you stick with the Broncos this week. And then if you want to play the Colts, throughout the rest of the year, like we said, they play Tennessee, the Giants, and then the Jags. So, I mean, for sure, they're a good streaming defense if you need them, and if you've already got them picked up, and those tough matchups come up for the Broncos, I would throw them in there.
Yeah. Nelson asked us, Tyler says Kamara was sidelined today. Um, would that matter? I don't want to say it matters too much. I know they're missing a whole bunch, but he was out today due to illness, so it wasn't really necessarily injury related. So I'm just going to monitor it, see what happens. If I have Kamara and I have him in several leagues, I'm going to play him. I mentioned the volume earlier. There's a lot of guys where I'd just be hoping for a touchdown. Whereas Kamara, he's going to get 15 plus carries and probably 5 catches. And you can't say that about a lot of players. So I'm going to be comfortable with him unless I'm told otherwise by the injury report. So just monitor that and you should be able to work it out.
Yeah, and it's a Wednesday practice report, right? Like we've seen veteran rest days get thrown in all season, especially toward the end of the years and years past. They'll give those veterans, a little bit of an extra rest day to kind of get rested up there. So unless it comes out later in the week that he's still battling an illness or he gets hurt actually or something, I wouldn't be worried about Kamara right now.
Yeah. Um, Pete says, give these guys a thumbs up. Hey, we appreciate that, Pete. Thanks for being in here, brother. Um, everyone, if you're here, give us that like button. We appreciate it greatly. Thanks for tuning in. Keep throwing your questions in there, and we will keep answering them. We love talking football. It is always a blast to be here. Let's jump to Michael Lopez's question. He says, Patrick Taylor or McCormick? Man, who would have thought we'd be answering this question 15 weeks ago? But here we are. Patrick Taylor for the 49ers or Sincere McCormick. So I'm going to go sincerely. McCormick has earned the job.
Yep, I agree there. He's earned the job. He's got the head coach confidence. We don't even know if Garendo's playing or not, so I would go there easily.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump to our next one here, Tyler. This is Stafford versus the 49ers or Jameis versus the Chiefs. Ooh. I mean, we talked a little bit about Jameis earlier and what that kind of entails when you play a guy like that. The guy's a clip master. He just finds a way to just produce content with his wonderful expressions and passion for the game. So I do love watching him play football. But for me, I'm going to go Stafford. Stafford is doing everything he can to will this team to win. Puka Nakua is playing great. If the defense can continue to step up, Sean McVay will figure it out. And I'm going to trust the 49, or excuse me, I'm going to trust the Rams taking on the 49ers, and I'm going to roll with Matthew Stafford.
Yep, I agree there. He has Puka and Cooper Cup also, Kyron in the backfield. He's got a little more talent, high end talent. Let me rephrase,
Mm-hmm.
than Jameis may have against the Chiefs. And the 49ers haven't looked like the same defense that they were last year. So, give me that shot at that game being a shootout, and just having a little bit better of a floor, especially going up against a tough defense for Jameis. So.
Yeah. Um, Rock out Tyler says Tua Nix Purdy. Um, this is interesting. I wish Coach was here to talk about Bo Nix. That's one of his favorite players. I think your list here, the way you have them ranked, is exactly how I would rank them. We talked at the beginning of the show about how Tua's playing fantastic football, and no one's really talking about it. He's been really efficient. We can make the jokes about the cold weather game, but I mean, he's still playing really, really well for fantasy. So I'm going to roll with Tua. Bo Nix is also another player that's playing really, really well. I hope Pete's still in here because he is not the offensive rookie of the year. That's Jaden Daniels, and I have to tell him that every time I see him. So I'm rolling Tua, Nix, Purdy in this situation. Tyler, would you change the ranking at all for these three?
Well, I think we talked earlier. Like I have the Tua Purdy decision already, and I've got Tua in, so that's already two of the three pieces figured out there. The challenge is where you put Bo Nix. Um, we talked earlier. Colts defense is not great. Bo Nix has been on fire. Um, I guess it depends on what you believe of Bo Nix. If you think we've seen the best of Bo Nix already, play Tua. Tua's on a heater, man. 4 straight games over 23 fantasy points. Um, play him for sure. He's there. But if you think there's some untapped potential there with Bo Nix, definitely no coach does. He might start Bo Nix in that matchup. So I would most likely go with the list you have, like the order you have the list in.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to roll with it. I won't fault you if you want to say that Bo Nix, this is the week taking on the Colts, and he's trying to get into the playoffs. Like, hey, it's time. If you have conviction about some sort of player, you need to do it. Otherwise, you're going to be kicking yourself that you didn't. You might come up short, but at least you went with your gut. For me, my gut says Tua is playing really, really good football, and I'm going to continue to roll with that until I'm shown otherwise. Nelson has another question for us. Tyler says, Pittman or Thielen, who would be a better drop for that quarterback question we had earlier? Um, man, Pittman was an investment for a lot of fantasy teams that just has not paid off. I mean, he's wide receiver 54 in the year. Last week he had 7 targets, only 5 catches, 42 yards. And other than that, he's only been getting you about, you know, 7 to 8 points a week. So it's been really disappointing. Tyler, who would you drop between these two players?
So I was actually kind of curious. Thielen missed a lot of the year since he came back. He had almost 20 points, not this past week, the week before, and he had 15 this past week. He's been the wide receiver 6 and the wide receiver 19 in the last 2 weeks. And his playoff schedule, coming around, they're going to play in games. They're not playing for the playoffs, so they're going to play their guys. They're going to see what they have. He has Dallas, Arizona, and then Tampa Bay in Week 17. All of those are good matchups for Thielen. So I know we said that the Colts have good matchups as well, but those other teams that the Colts are playing are also typically weak against the run game, I feel like. So, and another thing too, Pittman's not the one on the team anymore. That's Josh Downs. As long as Josh Downs is healthy, he is the one on the team. So, I think I would probably drop Pittman instead of Thielen.
Yeah, complete agreement for me too. You mentioned almost 20 points in week 13 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who he plays in championship weekend, and then almost 15 points against the Eagles this past week, who have played pretty good on defense. A lot of this is credit to Bryce Young. Bryce Young has played really good football the last month or so, really coming back from the benching. He's shown a lot of promise, and that's something that's been lacking in Carolina. The three of us, the mediators, all of us are from North Carolina. I don't live there anymore, so we've been surrounded by a lot of Panther news and Panther fans, so we kind of understand what they're looking for and looking at. And what I know is that Bryce Young has kind of maybe saved his job. I know Canales, I think, has saved his job too with how they've played the last few weeks, showing he can put up some points and put up a fight. So I'm interested to see what happens with this Panthers team going into the offseason. I think there's going to be a lot for us to talk about. Obviously, we have the unfortunate news of Brooks tearing his ACL again, so that's going to be something we have to deal with going forward. But Chuba got that big contract. But enough about the Panthers. I'm sorry, I'm rambling here. I'm just really, really excited for the offseason. That's my favorite part. I'm kind of looking to see how these teams will change. But Chris says Matthew Stafford or Justin Herbert. with an exclamation mark and a question mark. So this is a very serious, very important question, Tyler. It's very, very tough. We just talked about Stafford and what all he can do. Herbert, are you willing to take everything we just said and say, you know what? I'm going to choose Justin Herbert.
I will go out on a limb and I will say that as long as Lad McConkey plays, I will play Justin Herbert. If Lad McConkey is out, I would play Matthew Stafford. That's what that depends on for me. When Lad is in the offense, Justin Herbert has no problem throwing it to him. And guess what? I don't really have to worry about Lad catching the ball. I know Lad's most likely going to catch it. Every time he throws it to QJ, I'm afraid it's going to go through his hands. So I will ride with old Jay Herbo. If Lad is there, if not, I'll take Stafford and not even have to worry about it.
Yeah. Tampa Bay is the easiest matchup for quarterbacks. So there's a lot of opportunity there for Justin Herbert. I cannot blame you for that. He does add the problem is Matthew Stafford plays tomorrow. You're exactly right, Chris, that is the dilemma that you are in of you have to make the decision. For me, my decision is still going to be Matthew Stafford. We talked just a few minutes ago about how well he's been playing, and this offense is cooking. And I think that getting Puka and Cooper Cup rolling at the right time. I mean, they're playing San Fran in a divisional game that is a must-win for them. They have to win this game, and my prediction is that they will win this game. So I'm rolling with Stafford. And if you make that decision, I hope it works out for you because guess what? I'm doing the same thing. I'm playing him too in the leagues I have him. And I don't think I have this exact situation of Justin Herbert versus Stafford, but I do have some other ones of Stafford versus other big names. And I'm going to give it to Stafford. I'm going to take the shot on Puka and Cup kind of rolling this offense. Because, like you said earlier, Tyler, there's probably more playmakers for the Rams than there is for the Chargers. I mean, Ladd's a great
Yeah.
player, but he may or may not play. Outside of that, you're dealing with QJ and Will Disley.
Well, actually, I was looking that up because I was curious. Will Disley, I'm pretty sure, is going to be out this week too. So you're
There you
actually
go.
really down to QJ and Josh Palmer.
Hmm.
Um, and I had completely. I mean, I know we had just talked about it, so I shouldn't have forgotten that quickly. Sometimes I have the attention span of a goldfish. Um, but
Yeah.
them playing on Thursday, like if you have to pick one and you don't want to have to stress about, oh, if Lad doesn't play and Matthew Stafford has already played, what do I do then? Play Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is not a bad pick by any means. I was just saying, like Matt said, the Buccaneers defense is literally the best matchup for quarterbacks. They give up points all over the place. So if they have those offensive weapons, if they have Lad, I would be comfortable. But if you don't want to take the chance, play Stafford. I have Matt Stafford on a dynasty team that I'm having to play. So I've got him stacked with Puka, and I'm just praying it goes off for 50 points at least.
Yeah. Hey, um, I don't know if that's the league we're playing each other. I think we're playing each other in one league. I can't remember which one it is. So in that situation, don't go off. I need to win that week. But let's jump to our next question. Oh, well, I can't answer this question. So what's the chances of Saquon getting injured for the next week and playing him in the semifinals? Man, I don't know. I'm never going to wish injury on really anybody. That's tough. If you're playing Saquon, all you can do is just put your best lineup out there and hope for the best.
You close your eyes,
Yep.
and then you turn
Yeah.
around, and then you pray he doesn't hurtle over you as you do that. So,
Yep.
you just like Matt said, put your best lineup out there. You gotta hope somebody goes off to counteract him. I mean, that's literally all you can do. Saquon is a cheat code. I saw a stat earlier that was like on underdog for people that drafted. If they drafted, wow, I can't even communicate here. Apparently,
It's
if they
late.
drafted Jamar Chase and Saquon, they had like an 87% chance of making the playoffs just from two players. Two players. That's all it took. So that's how dominant he's been all season. You put your best lineup out there. Don't ever really. wish for injuries, that karma always tends to come around to bite everybody else in the butt. So, just yeah, man, it's tough. Trust me, I'm playing him. I'm playing him this week in multiple leagues. I'm already terrified. So,
Yeah, it's a scary situation. Nelson says, "My bad about all the questions." No, not a problem at all, man. That's why we're here. We're glad your questions are there, so we can answer them all. We appreciate you. All we ask is if you hit that like button, it helps us out. Go give us a follow on X, give us a subscription on YouTube, and of course, subscribe to the Face Off Sports Network. We're here every single Wednesday night answering questions. Also doing videos on the side with everyone. The Dynasty season, this offseason is going to be huge for the Face Off Sports Network. We're really excited to be a big part of that. So it's gonna be interesting. But we will jump to his question here. Tyler says, "Should I stay comfortable with Hawkinson? He's got Fryermuth and Smart on waivers." I think I picked up Smart in one dynasty league. I'm interested in what he could be, but I don't think I'm interested in playing him right away. Um, if I had to pick between Hawkinson and Fryermuth, I'm gonna go with I'm going with Hawkinson here. Tyler, what about you?
if it was another week where the Steelers weren't playing the Eagles, I might contemplate Freiermuth a little bit more. Um, Smart is a wait and see approach. That's one that yeah, you pick him up, off waivers and stuff, but you don't put him in the lineup until you see him fully produce there. The
Mhm.
question between Hawkinson and Freiermuth, I don't want to test the Eagles defense. Just play Hawkinson. He's got the target share. Just go with that.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I mean, Hawk has had um, at least four targets every single week he's played, except for one. And last week he had five targets with 62% of the snaps. He had 45 yards, so he's not goosing you. He's putting up some points. And honestly, I feel like he's looked better every single week. He's got a couple games with 9 targets, one with 6. So I'm going to go with Hawkinson. Although, Pat Fryermuth last 2 weeks has been double digits. He scored both of those weeks, so that kind of floats it for him. But it's smaller volume. You're getting a smaller piece of a pie. That's George Pickenson's offense. Um, I'm not sure I'm going to start Fryermuth over Hawkinson, but if you did, I'm not going to fault you too much because I think we're splitting hairs between, you know, the tight end 10 and 12 on the week, something like that.
Yeah.
Let's jump to Rockout's question here. Tyler says pick two. Um, he needs a flex here between Brian Thomas Jr., Devonta Smith, and Pacheco. Do you have two players in this group that you're going to pick, Tyler?
Um, man, every time I think about Brian Thomas Jr., I'm just so sad that Trevor Lawrence got hurt. He was on a breakneck pace with Trevor Lawrence out there, man. And he's still getting respectable, target share with Mac Jones. It's Mac Jones throwing the ball. That being said, he has been, a wide receiver two, uh, in the last 2 weeks for sure. And then week 11 versus Detroit because they had a week 12 bye. He was the wide receiver 30. He's been okay. Like he's still serviceable. Um, I don't want to say to completely avoid Devonte Smith this week because it is the Carolina Panthers. Um, we've talked about how typically when you have a wide receiver who's disgruntled and it gets made public in the media, they get a lot of targets that next week, and those targets have to come from somebody. So I think I lean a little bit more towards BTJ and Pacheco. Um, but I'm actually kind of curious because I know you have at least Brian Thomas Jr. and Devontae Smith on a roster. Would you play
Mm-hmm.
Pacheco over either of those guys?
I'm not. I'm starting both the wide receivers. Pacheco had 46% of the snaps last week, 14 carries, 55 yards. Um, Added a little bit in the passing game, not really much that impacted his actual fantasy scoring. So I'm not really feeling great about playing Pacheco. I still want to see it. Hunt's still in the mix. This Chiefs team is different. We can sit here and make fun of them and say Patrick Mahomes is playing poorly, but they're super efficient. When they get the ball, they drive down the field. It's slow, it's methodical. They're making all the right plays, dinks and dunks, and they're scoring points, and they're beating people not by scoring 40, but by scoring 20. So it's just a different look for this Chiefs team. Um, I'm not comfortable with starting Pacheco over these two. Brian Thomas is a guy that it just takes one play. I mean, against the Texans, or excuse me, against the Titans last week, he had 16.6 points, and it could have been a whole lot more. It really could have. He's been missed on some deep balls by Mac Jones just by a couple of yards, and if those connect, we're talking about 20+ point games. So I'm rolling with Brian Thomas Jr. He's getting great involvement. 12 targets, 10 targets the week before. Don't care if it's Mac Jones or not. He's a player that I've got to play. I mean, he's wide receiver 10 and he's a rookie. Devontae Smith, on the other hand, we've talked a lot about A.J. Brown and his involvement. Is that going to impact Devonta Smith? Maybe. But I also think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are smart enough to know that, hey, A.J. Brown's pretty mad and he wants targets. So they're probably going to throw it to A.J. Brown. I expect Joey Porter Jr. maybe to shadow him a little bit. We'll just have to see what happens there. But that's the thing with the Eagles. They've got two big-time playmakers on the edge, and we're not even talking about Saquon Barkley in the backfield. So I like Devonta Smith. Even last week against the Panthers, only 4 catches, but he caught a touchdown, 14 points. He just tends to get it done. He's kind of a little bit of a undervalued wide receiver in my mind. So I'm comfortable with the 2 wide receivers in this situation. Nelson says, thanks for the advice, guys. Getting your head straight. Hey, man, that's what we're here to do. We're happy to do that. We love talking football. We love talking ball. So, any questions you got, let us know. Todd is in a rough spot, Tyler. He says a league with 3 wide receivers starting Puka, DJ Moore, and Reed. On the bench, he's got Tim Patrick, Debo, and MVS. Me personally, I'm not going to make any moves with this group that you have starting. Those are the 3 that I would start as well. Yes, the goose egg last week of Reed hurt. I started him all over the place too, so don't feel bad. I think a lot of people took that hit. DJ Moore, I don't know if he's going to produce much, but I know Puka is, and I'm feeling comfortable starting Puka. Debo is the interesting play here. All this talk about who's going to be the 49ers running back. Is there a world where Debo gets, 10 carries this week?
I mean, there's definitely a world where that's the case. My thing is we've seen Debo get some chances as far as doing those little motion sweeps that they like to do and putting him in the backfield and stuff, and he hasn't looked the same all year.
Mm-hmm.
He last year he was breaking tackles everywhere, and it seems like now, I'm not saying necessarily the first guy brings him down, but he's not breaking tackles left and right like he was. Whether that's a health question or whatever it may be, um, he's just not. He doesn't look like the same player. I wouldn't make any changes to your lineup as is. Um, Maybe if Derek Carr was still there and you were like, I'm shooting for the moon, you throw in MVS, but not with these guys. I don't think, and I don't trust Tim Patrick. Yeah, he scored 2 touchdowns, but they have Amon Ra, they have Jameson Williams, and they have probably the best running back duo in the league. So I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put too much stock into that. I would play the 3 that you have in now, um, and they should be better. I nicknamed Jaden Reed on one of my teams where he goosed me. I nicknamed him the last Airbender or the last Avatar because he disappeared when you needed him most. Um, so hey, I felt it. I felt the sting. I had to get it out there, but um, yeah, just you put him back in the lineup, man. He's been too good all year. Um, they could you could see that bounce back this week, and he'll probably end up scoring at some point.
Yeah, we get added about Saquon here, Tyler, that he's a cyborg. It was a joke. Hey, yeah, we knew it was a joke, man. You're not wrong in the fact that he's a cyborg. Um, he's just played on another level. And, a lot of talk this year has been about the running backs who didn't get paid by their former teams and have had a lot of success. Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, and Saquon. I think part of that is a little bit skewed. We have a lot of bias because most of these players went from bad teams to good teams. and that matters. But they were also good players that were carrying their teams. So I expect them to continue to play well going forward into these fantasy playoffs and even into the actual NFL playoffs because these players have really taken on workloads. I mean, I say it every single week. I'm not sure if players missed more than Joe Mixon on the Bengals. They really wish they had his running game. Derrick Henry is just unbelievable. I mean, I'm terrified to play him in any league I'm going against him. And Saquon's the exact same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those older running backs, man, they have lit the scoreboard on fire this year. Absolutely. Um, and the weird part about it is with Derrick Henry, it's not been the same like MO this year. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in Tennessee, it was like he was breaking long runs or he would just run you over and stiff arm you. Do that. You know, Lamar is getting them down the field and he gets, to the goal line and they're just like, here you go. Here's your mammoth of a man that's going to run you over. So, I mean, I'm happy for him, man. Like, I think running backs have been underpaid for a while comparative to other positions.
Yeah.
See these guys like chilling out and saying, "Hey, like, look, if you want to skip over us, we'll make you pay."
Yeah. I mean, you've got a lot of players at other positions making a bunch more money than some of these running backs who are having big impacts. I understand the shelf life. I'm going to skip a couple questions here. We will certainly come back to them, but I just want to point out that he does add. He's been saying this about Brees Hall. If he could go to a good team, sorry to say that, but whoever has the Jets is destined to lose. I won't fight you too much there. I mean, the Jets have been poorly run, and if there was a mistake and it had a giant glaring sign saying "Don't do this," the Jets just kind of find a way to do it. It's almost
Hmm.
impressive at this point, but regardless, I mean Tyler's a big Brees Hall believer, and he certainly has talked about his talent and what he could do. I think there's brighter days ahead for Brees in the Jets uniform and maybe somewhere else in the future. I don't know. We'll just have to see there. Let's jump to our next question. We'll get back in line here. Let's see here. Jacob says, "Good night, boys. Great show. Hey, thanks for tuning in, Jacob. We appreciate you being here." We'll get Tron Force here. He says, "I'm currently running a lineup of Jaden Daniels, Cooper Cup, Terry McLaurin, Barkley, Chase Brown, and Joku and Monty, or JSN at the flex. I hope this lineup comes through for me in the playoffs." Man, I hope so too. I really hope you guys can all go out there and try and win some fantasy championships, unless we're playing each other, then you're going down. Um, but I think this is a pretty good lineup here, Tyler, don't you think? I mean, I would love for my wide receiver one to be a little bit more stable, but I can't fault the stability of this roster everywhere else. I mean, Chase Brown's going to get a bunch of points. Monty's going to get a bunch of points. JSN at the flex. It's really interesting, this team. I wonder where you see the flaw might be.
Yeah, so here's my issue because when I read through this, I'm assuming this is a two running back, two wide receiver league, and he has one flex spot, which means he's having to pick between Monty or JSN. I know that the Lions play the Bills this week, and I know that Cincinnati plays the Tennessee Titans. But I have a really hard time taking JSN out of my lineup right now.
Mhm.
And as much as I would want to put JSN in, you're not going to take out Cooper Cup, and you're definitely not taking out Terry McLaurin when you have Jaden Daniels. So, and we've already talked about Saquon Barkley playing ungodly all year. I I might put Monty above Chase Brown and put JSN at my flex and just leave Chase Brown off the list for now. If he has a good week, that's fine, but Monty is the more consistent option, and on top of that, him and Jahmyr Gibbs are basically guaranteed to score a touchdown every week. I would take the chance, man, like, you know, I would put Monty in there as the running back with Barkley and then put JSN at the flex and just go with it.
This is my surprise face, everyone. I was not expecting that. I mean, I know Tyler's a big JSN believer. The two of us have been friends for a really long time. But he also might be the highest on Chase Brown of anybody I know. I mean, I've even traded Chase Brown to him. So I'm shocked that you would take Chase Brown out of there, but I think your thought process is spot on. Like Monty's going to score. What's the difference between Chase Brown and Monty? Probably not too much. If it's Chase Brown's best day, we're looking at what, 20 points. If it's Monty's best day, we're looking at probably 20, 25 points. JSN has played well enough for it to matter, and him being your lineup. So I don't really disagree with Tyler at all. You've convinced me. I'm with you.
Well, here's another little tidbit that kind of goes into this. Think about all these players, right? And who do you think, which offense do you think has the most chance to struggle? Do you think it's the Bengals? Do you think it's the Lions? Or do you think it's Seattle? History so far has shown that the Bengals offense has been great. But guess what? They still don't win games. And where do those points typically translate to? Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and other than this week, T. Higgins typically. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Chase Brown had a good game last week, but you have that we've not seen before from a especially from a Lions team and Jameer Gibbs. And then you've got JSN who has stormed up the leaderboards as far as wide receiver rankings with DK out. Like JSN looks like he's the wide receiver one on this team right now. So, I mean, I think out of everybody that has the most chance to underperform, I think it is Chase Brown out of those
Man,
three.
and what's crazy too is like I'm going back and looking at it. Like this is a good team, man. Like a really good team. Chase Brown, 5 straight games of over 19 points.
Yeah.
Like, and we're talking about benching him. Like that's
Mhm.
wild. But I mean, when we go through the names that we're talking about, it kind of makes sense of, somebody's got to get left out, and you've got a lot of really good players. So you drafted a good team that's really done well for you. Obviously, you're in the playoffs, so hopefully that works out for you, Trone. Let us know. I'm interested to hear about it. We've got a few more.
Real
Oh, go
quick,
ahead, Tyler.
real quick. I want you to look up David Montgomery's scores in any league, whatever you want to look up. He has been under double digit fantasy points one time this year. One time. That's it. All the rest of them, his minimum, other than the one time he had 8, is 12. And you talk about who has a great schedule coming up. It's the Detroit Lions, man. Like, I mean, I think you just have to play him, man. Like, I don't see as much as I think Chase Brown is good. I'm not like gonna say he's better than Monty, he's definitely not better than Jameer Gibbs. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah,
I've been high on JSN since he broke out at Ohio State. So
yeah.
just thought for or food for thought there.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point. I mean, Montgomery, your point of he scores a touchdown almost a lock is so true. Like only 3 games
Yeah.
this year he didn't
Almost
score a
every week.
touchdown, so feel pretty good about that. Not Oh, we had some technical difficulties. Don't know what happened there. Sorry, everyone, but we'll carry on. We've got Rock out as this play Stafford over Kyler. Um, we'll kind of run through these last ones here. We've got about 10 minutes left. We'll roll through them pretty quick. But for me, I think I'm going to start Kyler. I know I had a lot of talk about Stafford earlier. Um, Kyler against the Patriots. Um, let's see here. Decent matchup for quarterbacks. Tyler, how do you feel about this one? I know we've got to make a decision since the Rams play tomorrow night against the 49ers. you have a preference here?
I think if you're shooting for the moon, I think you probably go Kyler, but Kyler has been a boom bust pick this year.
Hmm.
If you've started him, it either goes really good or really bad typically. There's really been no in between. So, I I mean, depends on what the rest of your team looks like. Is the rest of your team pretty stable? Go with Kyler. Cool. If not, and you need points, you know that you need points. I would play Stafford. Because what are you going to do if you look up on on Sunday and the Patriots and the Cardinals is like 10-3, and you just watched Stafford throw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, and you're like, I could have had those points in my team versus watching Kyler airmail Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison. So
Yeah, Kyler's not been a fun experience this year. Not really scoring a bunch of fantasy points while he's quarterback 10 on the year. It's been ugly. There, like Tyler said, there's no way around that. So um, the moon play is Kyler. The safe play is Stafford. So I think it depends on what you need. In this situation, I'm probably going for the moon. So I think I'm rolling with Kyler and I'm closing my eyes because that's terrifying. But Ravens asked us to rate his roster heading into the playoffs, Tyler. The format of it is a 12 team head to head full PPR super flex. He's 11-3, 6 point passing touchdown, one QB, two running back, three wide receiver, one tight end, one flex, and one super flex. He secured the bye, so well done, my friend. Always good when you can do that. Is almost a 33% chance for you to make your fantasy championship if you have that bye week. So definitely a good thing that you were able to secure that. Here's his team. We've got Kyler Murray, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Mike Evans, Zach Ertz, Adam Thielen, and Jared Goff. On the bench, we have Tyler Algier, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Braylon Allen, Tajay Spears, and Debo, with Diggs on IR and Dobbins as well. Um, I'll go first here. I think this is a really good starting lineup. I love James Conner and Aaron Jones are two solid running backs. You know what you're going to get out of them. Amon Ra is one of the best wide receivers in the game. Drake London and Mike Evans. That's where it's a little bit dicey for me. Fine with Zach Ertz. Obviously, you could get a little bit better. But Adam Thielen, that's the name here at the end that I think is really interesting. We highlighted earlier how he's playing really good football right now. 20 points this past week, and I think like 15 the week before that, something like that. So I'm fine with this roster. Your quarterbacks are solid, Jared Goff and Kyler Murray. I don't really feel like you're going to get goosed. You're probably going to average between 30 to 35 points in those spots. Certainly could use a little bit of help. Your depth isn't necessarily the best starters, or excuse me, the best players to go in for your starters. But I mean, Braylon Allen, good time to have him. Um, Blake Corum getting more
yeah,
run.
yeah. I
Tajay
mean,
Spears.
your starting lineup is definitely like that's the team you want, like for
Mm,
sure. That now, like you said, the the bench is not great, but you do have Trey Benson in case James Conner went down. You've got Blake Corum who has spelled Kyron a little bit. Braylon, is a good ad with Brees being out. Um, I mean, I the bad part about it is you did lose depth with Dobbins. Dobbins was doing great, and if you had Dobbins still, you'd be in a much better spot. Um, you're hoping that at this point you don't have any injuries, really. I mean, if that's your starting lineup all the way through the playoffs, you've got a good chance, like for sure. But
especially with the
like
bye.
Matt said, yeah, exactly. And so, like Matt said, the Zach Ertz is like, eh. But I've had leagues where I've had to play Zach Ertz all year, and guess
Yeah.
what? For some reason, no Matt can vouch for this because he watches every game. Zach Ertz can do nothing for 3 quarters. And when it comes to the fourth quarter, for some reason, Zach Ertz is going to catch like 4 or 5 passes and he'll have 40 or 50 yards. And he may even score a touchdown. And it just
Hmm.
saves itself. Somehow it works out every game. It's
Touchdown three
absurd.
weeks in a row.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Three
So
weeks in a row.
I I really like the team, the starting lineup for sure. You don't have as much depth, obviously, like we said. Um, but I like the team. I think you got a good shot at it. Aaron Jones has a good playoff schedule as well.
Mhm.
So that's going to be huge for you going down the
Yeah.
stretch here.
He adds to Tyler, that he dropped Pitts for Zach Ertz. So yeah, I mean I get it. Pitts is been really, really, really disappointing. So I don't blame you at all for making that move. Let's jump to Johnny's question. Tyler says, start sit Josh Jacobs or Mike Evans in the flex. It's full PPR. For me, I'm going to go Jacobs. I mean, Jacobs is just playing great football right now. I mean, he's going to get 18 plus carries and probably a few targets, and a few catches. So I'm going to roll with Josh Jacobs. I feel like his touchdown odds are better. Also, here's his last 4 games: 23 points, 28 points, 21 points, 24 points. Mike Evans isn't doing that. So I like Mike Evans. Great story. I think he might miss his 1,000 yards this year. So tough situation there.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't. That's been a great story every year is to see Mike Evans hit his 1,000 yards, and I'm pretty sure Baker even knew it too. He was like, "Yeah, he's got to average like 99 yards every week or something."
Hmm.
So I think he's trying, but you can't sit Josh Jacobs not in this situation when he's had
No.
those stats come out. Like Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. He adds Tyler that the only reason he asks is because he needs to shoot for the moon because his um, on Sleeper. I guess he sent a link. We can't see the link on here. I'm sorry, Johnny. Just kind of how our stream works. But I can't blame you. I mean, Evans scored what was it, 40 something points one year in the playoffs a couple years ago. Won a lot of fantasy championships for people. So he is a guy that can do it. There's no denying that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But
But
Johnny's,
you've
go ahead. Go
sorry,
ahead.
you've got Kate Otten and stuff too. Yeah, they're missing Godwin, but and let's not forget the best player on that offense is Bucky Irving, especially if he plays, it's it doesn't matter. So while I understand and I do appreciate the Mike Evans love, you can't start him over Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. He asked us 2 more questions. We'll hit these, Tyler. Would you start Stroud or Bo Nix this week? Um, you know, it's tough. You Broncos taking on your Colts, so an okay matchup for Bo Nix. It's a must-win game for them. Stroud, on the other hand, I'm not sure what to make of this year. It's just been a different team. Um, Tyler, do you have a preference between Stroud and Bo Nix?
Yeah, and actually, I may shock you here, but it's pretty easily Bo Nix for me. I've had the Stroud experience. Not saying that he's a bad quarterback by any means, or that I'm really necessarily trying to trade him, but Stroud hasn't looked great all year. So, Bo's been the more productive player. His other question does tie into this, though, is he says you can waiver Gino or Matthew Stafford. Um, I'll be honest with you. I might pick up Stafford and play him. If that's my options, you know, I mean, if you have the depth to be able to pick up Stafford, I'd probably pick up Stafford and play him or take the shot with Bo. It's one of the two. But I would
Yeah,
try to sit Stroud as much as I could right now.
man, this is a really tough one. Like I hate this question for you, because Stroud has been really disappointing. Man, in 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 Houston taking on Miami, so they're at home. Bo Nix against the Colts at home. I think I think I'm going to start Stroud between these two. I don't know why. My gut's telling me Stroud. Um, Texans got to keep winning ball games. Miami's playing well, so this might be a shootout. And I think I'm going to go with Stroud, but I wouldn't blame you if you do what Tyler said and you pick up Stafford because it's really a tough situation that you're in, man. I really really feel for you. Well, let's speed run these last few here, Tyler. We'll answer everyone's questions that are in the chat. Pick two: Waddle, Tracy, and McCormick.
Waddle and Tracy. I mean, yeah, McCormick's got the backfield, but I know Tracy already has that one locked up, and I'll take the shot that Waddle scores.
Yep, I'm with you. Hi, gents. Please pick three in PPR. Ladd, T, and Evans also adds Cup. So my three, I'll go with T, Cup, and Ladd if he plays.
Yep. Yep. I tend to agree there.
All right, same order. All right.
Hmm.
He does add Tyler too that he has Jawan. So does that change your order at all with the opportunity to play Jawan?
Oh man, it
I
might
might
actually.
make Jawan the three for me. I might do Cup, T, and Jawan Jennings just to avoid the injury issues of Ladd and also avoid the struggles of Mike Evans and kind of deal with that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's probably where I lean as well. Although if Vlad, well, no, I'll take that. I'll do Cup, T, and Jawan. That's how I would probably order them. If Lad was healthy, I'd probably put him in there, and then I would debate between Jawan and T. But I'll take those first three: the Jawan, Cup, and
Yeah.
T.
Javier Ramirez says full PPR. My running backs are Chase Brown and Kyron. My wide receivers are Lamb and London. Need help with the flex. Neighbors or Pollard? For me, I'm going to go Neighbors. Neighbors is going to have the volume. Um, Pollard, we talked about him earlier. He's been really steady. I mean, he's a solid RB2. Neighbors is the one that's going to have the ability to propel my team forward in the playoffs. So I'm rolling with Neighbors. I'm fine with the lumps.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think so. I think I'd probably go Neighbors as well. As much as Paul, as since he may be a bad defense, we've seen Calvin Ridley, kind of get going here lately, and Will Levis likes to throw it to him. So I would probably take Neighbors. He's got the more explosive upside for sure.
Yeah. Raven says, thanks for your critique and feedback. Hey, thanks for asking a question, man. We really enjoyed reviewing your team and talking about it a little bit. So um, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you being here. Johnny says, the only reason I ask is because I might need to shoot for the moon. We already covered that part. He says, appreciate it, fam. Hey, man, we appreciate you. Um, you're not wrong. I'm going to show this to Tyler because he's a Colts fan. The Colts secondary is not so good. Johnny, you're not right because what you meant to say is the Colts secondary sucks. So sorry, Tyler.
It's okay. It's not new news, so that's all right.
All right. He says, good night, folks. Hey, thanks for being here, Johnny. Everyone, be sure to hit that like button. We've got three more, and then we'll jump out of here, Tyler. He's debating my full PPR flex Bucky, Pacheco, or Devonta Smith. For me, if Bucky plays and he's healthy, I'm rolling with Bucky. Otherwise, it's going to be Devonta Smith.
Yep,
Same for you.
yep. That's the order I would go with. Yep.
All right, last question from Javi Ramirez. Anthony Richardson or Kyler? We kind of talked about both these players a little bit earlier. I'm not even sure where Tyler's going to lean on this one. I think I might go Anthony Richardson, and I'm one of the biggest Anthony Richardson critics. So that's weird to say.
That's some growth right there because you ask Matt or Coach, either one, earlier in the season. Now, granted, AR's looked a lot better, but you ask them that earlier in the season, and they're like, "No, what are you even talking about? Like, it wouldn't even be close." I actually, though, as much as I would love to say AR, he's going against a Broncos defense that's been stout. I'll take Kyler against the Patriots, and just like Matt said earlier, close your eyes and hope.
Yep. Close your eyes. That's all we can do in the playoffs. Last question from Izzy is PPR flex. Higgins, Cup, Montgomery, or Addison? Now, this is an interesting question, Izzy. I appreciate you popping in here and asking us this one. We haven't talked too much about T. Higgins or Montgomery tonight. We started the show with Addison, who's played really, really well. We both said that we're comfortable playing Addison in the playoffs. My question to you, Tyler, for Izzy, is he the one to start out of this group here?
I listen. Either way, I say whatever I say out of this, it's going to come back to bite me one way or the other. Um, I personally have the feeling that Addison is the least um, out of these four. Like he would be at the bottom for me as far as a flex ranking goes. Um, I may actually shock Matt here. Um, I think I would put Higgins on at 3. And then I think I'm going Montgomery 2 and Cup 1.
So
Cooper Cup.
Cup's your start.
I think Cooper Cup is my start. I mean, if you and it all depends too. If you need the upside, absolutely go Cooper Cup. If you need the steady Eddie play and you just need points, it's David Montgomery all day. We just talked about it's basically a lock for him to score a touchdown.
Mhm.
So it depends on what you need there. I don't want to play the game with T Higgins. What if this is the week where like T Higgins decides, oh, I'm going to play 17% of snaps because I have an injury. I don't know. He didn't look good last week. He hurt me in several leagues. So um, I don't really want to mess with that. I'll take, especially having these guys, I'd take Cup or Montgomery over him. And although Addison's looked good, I mean, I think you can get the same production out of those two.
Yeah, I think I'm going to surprise you here. I'm going with T. Higgins. Um, I don't know why, but I just feel like he's going to get a little bit more involved. We know this offense is throwing the ball. Outside of last week, that was his first bad game that he played in. Now, I understand he missed time, but that was his first bad game since the first game he played this year against Washington, where he only had 7 points. Other than that, 12, 29, 14, 18, 29, 18. Like, I'm going to roll with Higgins here. I think he's going to bounce back and have some volume to use. But like Tyler said, if you need points this week, Montgomery's probably your best player because we know he's probably going to score a touchdown and he'll be involved. So, but Tyler, that hits all of our questions here. We appreciate everyone who tuned in here. So be sure to like the stream. Give us a follow over on X at the FF Mediators. You can follow Tyler at tfarmer_34. You can follow our YouTube at the FF Mediators. And of course, if you're not subscribed to the Face Off Sports Network, you need to go ahead and do that. Constantly putting out fantasy content and even on other sports too. We're really proud to be affiliates with them. We're live every single Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern, so you can catch us here. Comment your questions, let us know your thoughts, and we will see you next time.